Hey guys, today we have a lesson. I think it's a deep lesson. I think it's a lesson that will make you think about the impact of a war. So we pulled out in 75. You saw that last class. But some of the veterans from Vietnam and many of the veterans from the wars we're in now can't leave the war behind. And so we're talking about the scars left by war. And there's reasons for that. And we have names for those reasons or names to describe the horrible feeling of coming home after a war that was devastating. The first term I want you to know, and I want you to be familiar with it, let me hold it up and hold it up well, is cognitive dissonance. Cognitive means mind, dissonance means nothing seems quite right. And so you heard Tim O'Brien write about it and talk about it, and you'll hear some vets today talk about it. When they went off to war in Vietnam, they expected to see the enemy in uniforms. They expected it to be us and them. They expected a clear line of battle. Instead, the enemy didn't wear uniforms. The enemy was sometimes the very people you were talking to and protecting during the day. The jungle made it hard to see your enemy. You saw your friends' legs get blown off. You don't hear the bullet that kills you. And so all of a sudden, nothing is as you expected it to be. The stories that you were told weren't true. And so now you're in a place where all expectations are disappointed. And so you start to develop a stress and anxiety, a deep, dark panic that leads you to depression, that leads you to question, that leads you to confusion, that leads you deeply into anxiety. And that feeling where you show up and nothing is the way you expected it to be is a feeling we call cognitive dissonance. There's another term used that's really powerful in Vietnam, and that's a term that was developed by Emile Durkheim, a sociologist, and that term is anomie. And as you write down definitions for these, anomie means a sense of having no power, a sense of having no meaning as an individual, a loss of dignity, a loss of purpose. So when you're in the jungle and you can't see the bullets, you can't see the enemies, you don't know who your friend is, you find yourself doing things you never thought you'd do, you find yourself powerless. You find yourself unable to control anything around you. Um, the bullets are coming from invisible jungle. The bombs are coming from invisible destinations. And suddenly you sense anomie. That leads again to depression and anxiety. It also leads to anger and frustration. And in that anger and frustration, we do things we never thought we'd do. We go to a place we never thought we'd go to because we feel like we must do something. So we do what later seems like madness or evil or darkness. And that comes from a sense of having no power. I know that some of you may sense that now, right? We're fighting an invisible enemy. We can't see this virus, and so much of what you expected in your senior year has been taken away from you, and you can't get it back, and we can't get it back for you, and you don't know who to ask. And when you ask, you hear two different answers. That sense is frustrating. It's angering. It makes you mad. It gives you a sense of anomie. Cognitive dissonance, a total loss of expectations, and a total loss of feeling any power is something we call the fever of war. And in the fever of war, you act out, like I said, in ways you never expect that you would behave or think. And afterwards, you're left with the memory of what you did, even though you can't believe you did it. But the reason you did it was you couldn't believe anything. There was nothing nothing was what you were told it would be. And so it leads to madness. And that madness, once you come home and things get quiet and people all around you seem normal and unaffected by the war or disinterested in the war, it results in something that you've heard more about and you'll hear about today: PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. And in this, you can't escape the darkness of where you've been. You can't escape the events that you were in. And very often, PTSD is linked to survivor's guilt. Why did your friend die? Why did your colleague die and you stay alive? What were the rules that kept you alive and cost him his life or her life? How do you explain it? So you can't. So your mind doesn't give it up, and it goes back again and again and again in flashbacks and frustration. That sense of cognitive dissonance and anomie come back, and you find yourself in a state of post-traumatic stress disorder. Um, we don't know. We can't give you a good, accurate number of people from the Vietnam War who suffered from PTSD, but we can say now, in these wars since 9/11, these last 19 years of war, 20% of our soldiers that come back, 1 in 5, come back with PTSD. And that's what today's lesson is about. What happens after you get home? What happens after the war is over? Take a good look at these. I think you'll find them deep, right? And if you have people in your family who have fought in war, who have fought overseas, maybe this helps you understand the the weight of what pulls them back to that event. Take care, guys. Have a good day.